you, everybody. Welcome to the November Chemical Consultants Network meeting. I'm Mike Michaelzek, the chair of CCN. Chemical Consultants Network is a group of chemists and chemical engineers that provide guidance, expertise, and resources to members who are consulting or interested in consulting. We're a topical group at the Philadelphia section of the American Chemical Society. And for $35 a year, paid members can create a web page on our CCN website to attract potential clients. You can sign up to be a member of CCN at our website at chemconsultants.org. If anybody has any information to share on their business or has consulting opportunities that might be of interest to our Zoom audience, please put that in the Zoom chat so all information can be shared by all attendees. Also, please put any questions you might have for our speakers in the Zoom chat too. Tonight's speakers will be introduced by Keith Wing, the former chair of CCN. So take it away, Keith.
Thanks, Michael. So I just wanted to let the audience know that the topic that we're going to be discussing today came about through some discussions between a few of us in CCN, myself, our treasurer, Fred Hartman, and Michael. And we all were kind of speculating, well, in this lower unemployment environment across all markets, how were employment opportunities looking for members of the chemical enterprise, chemists and biochemists and people in pharmaceuticals? And so we started talking about it. I was discussing it with our good friends at Philadelphia ACS, Joe Martino and Jim Murray, and they showed a lot of interest in the topic. And all of us decided that it would be a really good topic for a joint CCN Philly ACS meeting. And Jim Murray has kindly decided to step up and organize this whole meeting and be our moderator. And I just wanted to mention that Jim has been a professor at Immaculata College since 2001. He's been the chair of Philadelphia ACS section in 2019. And he's also been active more recently as a career consultant in the ACS organization, and is taking over chairship of that in the Philadelphia area. And so he has a lot of connections and a lot of expertise in this area. He's joined by two authoritative panelists whom he will introduce. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Murray, our good friend.
Oh, thanks,
Jim?
Keith. I appreciate the warm introduction. So it gives me great pleasure on behalf of the Career Services Committee of the Philly ACS to welcome everybody to this evening's event. And as Keith said, our two distinguished speakers this evening will be Dennis Murphy and Bhaskar Venepalli, two also ACS career consultants that I've had experience with in numerous ACS events over the time. Dennis is currently working at GSK in the biochemistry area, right, Dennis? I know you've been bouncing around and all that, but I know biochemistry is your area. And Bhaskar has done a lot of work in regard to consulting, starting companies, leading entrepreneurship endeavors for people who want to get into the consulting business or getting into the process of starting their own businesses, and have had a real good feel over the years, especially with our work in the career consulting area, with regard to talking to vast numbers of people, young, old, new students, new postdocs, all of that realm of people in the chemical enterprise, and really listening to what it is that they have to say, especially now, as Keith said, in this very low unemployment time. What kind of questions are we getting asked as career consultants? What is it that we're seeing from the multitudes of people that we deal with at virtual office hours and when we get one-on-one consulting gigs? And what is it that they have brought forward as key issues that they're seeing right now with regard to securing employment in the chemical enterprise? So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Dennis and then over to Bhaskar to do some introductions if they have anything that they want to add before we start the open discussion. So Dennis, if there's anything you want to add to the beginning of this, please go right ahead.
Sure. So I'm in biochemistry, but I work a lot with the medicinal chemists and talk to them. I've seen them go and also some computational chemists. So I've seen some of their recruiting and talked to a few of them about what they're looking for, how things have gone in our company, which is a big pharmaceutical company. So if there are if we get into a discussion around that, I can address some of of the questions about hiring in biochemistry and medicinal chemistry.
Thank you, Dennis. Bhaskar, if you want to introduce anything that I didn't cover in my introduction, please take the time and go right ahead. Oh, Bhaskar, you're
muted.
muted.
Excuse me. So, yeah, thank you, Jim. First of all, I'm thankful that we are having this conversation with fellow chemists. I'm a trained organic chemist. I grew up in India with a degree, PhD, and then came here as a postdoc. And then my first job was in Eastman Kodak in Rochester. Some of you may remember that or not, I don't know. And we know Melbourne well because Eastman Kodak started a pharma company in Great Valley and Melbourne area going back to 1993. I moved on to different positions within Eastman and then left job and started my own company in RTP area. We are a CRO lab providing chemistry services for pharma biotech companies. In addition to that, as Jim said, I have been sort of working with ACS national level at various positions, particularly of career consulting. I'm also involved in local section ACS as a chair-elect. And I see a variety of people. So this is really going to be a fascinating discussion. I hope audience asks the questions. And right now, I take care of my company and also work with some nonprofits. I'm a board of trustee of one of the universities locally and also North Carolina Biotechnology Center. So we work with a variety of people to create how we can create employment, how can we help young people to do things that they like to do.
All right, thank you, Bhaskar, and thanks, Dennis. And before we get into the discussion, I just want to say that if you have questions along the way, please put them into the chat. And then when we get to the open Q&A session near the end, we can just go to the chat. If we get a little bit of a lull in there, we can look back there and see what questions people might have had earlier on in the discussion. So I'll get things started and I'll say one of the things that has come across to me in the recent career consulting events that I've worked with ACS is a lot of students, especially graduate students and postdocs, have come to me and they said, I have an overabundance of opportunities. And everybody told me something is not right here, that you've got many, many more opportunities out there than I had when I was applying for postdocs or when I was applying for jobs. And they were saying, is this a right thing or is this a wrong thing to be experiencing at this point in time? And one of the other things that had come out from a number of discussions, especially I saw this with students that were applying for postdocs, was the fact that they said now that labs are starting to reopen again and people are starting to do research, you're starting to see a flood of people applying for T32 training grants for graduate students. And what is it? I think it's P32 NIH grants for postdoctoral training. And that as one student said to me, the coffers seem to have been opening up and people are willing to give out money for people to apply for postdocs in such positions. Is this a normal thing to have happening here? And I've got a lot of opportunities for people saying, hey, I've got active work that I would like to get done. We've been quarantined, camped up, whatever term you want to use there, for 2 years. And now my lab is finally reopened again. Oh, gee, and I want to get people in there and get working. So one of the things that I've seen is that there's sort of been an overabundance of opportunities for people coming along, and people are like, how do I try to pick what is the best thing out there for me at my stage of a career when I've got all these offers? And I get the feeling that I should be taking the first thing that comes down the line. I'm like, no, you want to think about this a little bit. You don't want to just grab the first opportunity that comes down. Think about really what's going to benefit you. But that was the one thing that I found very strange, that they were saying it's almost like there's an overabundance of opportunities out there right now, that people are just desperate and giving, I don't want to say giving away the house, but making offers very, very lucrative so that they can attract the best talent and the best skilled people that are out there at this point in time. And I find that very, very interesting. Another thing I saw that I think impacts this, our trade journal, Chemical and Engineering News, about 3-4 issues back, they had an article in there and it said projections for Q4 and Q1 2023 for Europe apparently are going to be lower than were originally planned. And I'm wondering how it is, especially if you have multinational companies, how it is that a potential downturn in the European sector can come back and influence things back here in the States. So I'll leave off with that. And if Dennis or Bhaskar want to say anything, or we'll open it up to get the discussion going, let's have a good time to chat and get ideas out there. We signed up. Don't be afraid. Don't be hesitant.
So Jim, let me take a shot at some of the things you brought up. You brought up abundance of opportunities for young people. You brought up some of the grants and other things that are particularly given to PhD students in the academic world. You also mentioned about things that are happening in Europe. And I was in Chicago ACS meeting, in August, last week of August, and just wanted to mention to you all, there are about 18 or so are employers looking for chemists. Each of them are looking for 30, 40 chemists. There weren't enough chemists looking for jobs at the Chicago ACS meeting. So good times are rolling in for chemists. And yes, I come across similar situations. So in a way it is good, but also we need to tell young people that they need to take advantage of what they like to do, because things change. As you rightly said, in Europe, things are going to slow down. And around here also, even large companies, we don't hear much about last 1 year or so, but because of what happened with the COVID and how pharma industry helped overcome the COVID, that brought so much money, so much interest in life sciences, pharma companies. But hopefully it will continue for a while. But one has to be realistic. So what I tell young people is, choose what you like to do. Okay, you don't. It's a good thing you're in a good time. Choose what you like to do, and then try to give it a try. Sometimes things don't work out, but make sure you do all the homework. Okay, that's number one. Number two is the last thing you brought up, Jim, about Europe. Things are slowing down. Yeah, around here also, like in RTP where we are, a lot of new companies are starting. New opportunities are coming in biomanufacturing, for example. And we don't have enough people to today in RTP area, trained people to work in biomanufacturing. That's biomanufacturing includes fermentation, making biological APIs. Small molecule chemists are trained. They're little better compared to large molecule people. So just to summarize then, my thought anyway, it's good for chemists. It's a good time to be a chemist nowadays looking for a job. It looks like that's good. That's true for across all the boards in a great America we live in today. I'm sure Europe is going through a much tougher time compared to the United States. But while this is happening, we need to take advantage of what we do, what we like best, and then look at our strengths and then take advantage of our strengths to find the right opportunity. And let me stop there, and then Dennis, you want to continue, then we'll come back again.
Okay, sure. Yeah. What I've found is very consistent with what Jim has said, that it really is the candidates market, that offers are higher. There's a little more flexibility with location, and one of the main interesting comments was about doing a postdoc or not doing a postdoc, and this is actually a really tough decision for a graduating scientist. That the people applying right out of their PhD programs, aren't as good. They just don't have quite as much seasoning. They haven't had a second experience in a different lab, but they're still getting offers. The demand is high enough now that students coming right out of their PhD programs are getting offers for positions that they wouldn't have gotten 5 years ago. That there's enough open positions and that are needed to be filled, that people are being hired right out of grad school. So in terms of your scientific progress and development, the conventional wisdom is, a postdoc really does add a lot to that, and you are potentially giving something up by not doing a postdoc. Versus getting on with your life, getting started, making significantly higher salary, settling down in a particular geographic area that you might want to stay in. So it's a real tough call for advising students about what to do, depending upon how much the interest they have in broadening their scientific area. I started in organic chemistry, and I did a biochemistry and molecular biology in my postdoc, which I would not have really been able to do in industry had I just gone directly in. So it is an opportunity to really spread your wings and maybe even try something completely new. It's definitely much more of a choice rather than, you kind of really have to do a postdoc to get the best positions now. So that is an opportunity that is presenting itself to students now that hadn't been around before. Another one is remote work. This is especially true in computational chemistry, where you truly can work in Miami and or live in Miami and work for Novartis or work for us in GSK or work for work for Lilly or work for a startup company in Boston. So those are things that people are starting to try and get now and negotiate. The people that are on site that have to actually work in the hoods are less than enthusiastic about that. Something along the lines of 50-50 on-site versus off-site is probably good enough. But there is a lot to be said for being on site, mixing with your colleagues, having those lunches together, reading body language at team meetings and stuff like that. That you do miss out on if you're not on site at least part of the time. So especially in the computational field where you could go entirely remote. There are some people, especially maybe more of the senior and hiring managers that are less comfortable with the video technology, that they would want to see people on site more. So those are a couple of the insights that I got from our place.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. One of the other issues that I think is sort of a trickle down with this, that I'm wondering how this also impacts the job market, is everybody that's been out there in the past 2.5 years has always turned around and said, oh, supply chain for everything. And I can say that the lab that I'm currently working in now, we rely on 96 well plates. And one of the other graduate students is like, if we get to a stage where we're down to X number of 96 well plates, please let somebody know that we can, so that we can order these quickly, because the likelihood that they're going to be here anytime soon, we can't guarantee that anymore. So for Bhaskar, for Dennis, and I haven't heard much of this, I guess the crowd that signs up to do consulting with me is more looking for graduate school and for academic positions. But what about the hiring of chemists and chemical engineers, manufacturing type people, to try to ramp up those areas to get basic supplies? I mean, I think about what happens if we were to go to the Aldrich catalog and call Aldrich to order something, and Aldrich is like, yeah, it'll take a year to get that or 6 months to get it. What about the prospects for hiring chemists, even bachelor's level chemists, to fill some of these slots to ramp up the production of commodity entities that we all know that we would just walk in the lab and expect to be there, and all of a sudden they're not there.
So Jim, it's interesting paradigm that you brought up an issue, which we think at home we have this problem, but this problem exists across the board, right? Unfortunately, we are the United States. I don't know where we manufacture this anymore, most of these things. I'm telling you, I don't know where 96 well plates get manufactured. Does anybody make them in the United States? Based on what I know, from a chemicals point of view, United States gave up most of the raw materials manufacturing. I don't know about 96 well plates, Jim, but I'm telling you, a lot of basic commodities, raw materials, even key raw materials we gave away for many reasons. Okay, I don't have to debate here what the reasons were. I'm sure economics is a key driver, but today we are dependent on so many of these things from outside world, and it's in a way a shame. And as you all know, when new president came 2 years ago, or maybe during the previous president's time also, they wanted to bring manufacturing back in the United States. So they still challenge pharma companies to start producing essential drugs in America. Okay, since generic drugs, and they threw money at it, but they cannot buy raw materials. Okay, so I'm just giving you that as an example to tell you. So going back to what you said, it is a shame, but hopefully that may come back a little later. But people have to change completely that anything you make in the United States will be more expensive, including your shirt, iPhone, computers, or raw materials, chemicals, or reagents, or 96 well plates. Now, are we willing to pay as a consumer higher prices? And right now, government is imposing this, but can consumer also feel that? And I hope they do. That's my thought. Okay. So now I still would like to know at some point, I would like to research, find out myself who manufactures the laboratory type of equipment in the United States, or anybody makes it? Let me stop there. Dennis or anybody else want to comment? In fact, James, any questions like that, we should also ask audience if they have a comment to make also, sometimes they may have a creative comment too, Jim.
Yeah, Bhaskar, I got a few that I'll bring out after Dennis says something.
I work in a lab that uses a lot of this stuff, and it's gotten better. It was a problem for a while, and you really had to keep an eye out on what was on the shelf. But it's definitely gotten better. So it's hard to know if Jim's advice to go into that area is going to be an opportunity that lasts all that long. I don't know, but I can say that the supply chain has gotten a little better.
Well, let's be thankful for small things.
Yeah.
So let's start to dip into some of the questions that have been popping in from the general audience. So one question is, will postdocs for non-academic jobs be a thing in the future? Will postdocs go away like internships? What do you think about that? And before Dennis or Bhaskar, I'll say this, that being an academic at a primarily undergraduate institution, everybody and his brother, sister, and third cousin is now looking for an internship. By the time Halloween comes around, I've got a list of people just looking, oh, I got to get an internship. It's got to be the way to go. It's the way of the future. I got to do this. And if I don't get an internship, I'm never going to get a job, or I won't get into graduate school. And you really got to reel people in and say, why is it that you want to do this? What are you getting yourself into here? And do you think that this is a cure-all, end-all that's going to solve every problem it is that you have once you miraculously get an internship? So Dennis, Bhaskar, any feelings on the future of postdocs or internships coming down the line?
I think they'll stick around for the ambitious scientists, though. As I mentioned, it really is a chance to try something a little different. You get additional seasoning, and also not everyone who winds up in industry has made that decision by the time they leave their PhD program. So you may want to give a postdoc a try. Different place, prestige lab, really exciting work. with the intent of, okay, yeah, let me see how this goes. And if I can do something, A+ in my postdoc, that'll open up the door to an academic job. And I don't quite have that open now, that they would do a postdoc. I could definitely see that happening for the people that are tired of being in school, tired of making $22,000 a year. When the first job comes along, they want to grab it. They're going to. I think that that filling up labs with postdocs is probably going away. But I think the more ambitious people, the people that haven't quite decided, the people that want to try a different field, will continue to do postdocs. Again, I think it's a case of kind of what we all learned, Markovnikov's law. Then that gets the prestige labs will continue to get them, but I think the lower tier labs will probably struggle. That's just my intuition, not based on talking to anybody who has turned down or accepted a postdoc.
So I agree with Dennis completely, Jim, and all of you. As long as NIH, NSF keep giving grant money, professors find a way to get postdocs. Okay, they can be academic researchers, and also some people, entry-level chemists, may like get into postdocs, as Dennis said. Many people don't want to. If they have a good job, they jump into the job. We come across so many career consulting. So people have jobs, they jump on it and they ask, okay, should I go to postdoc or job? I said, look, if you're confident, take a job. Why not? But if you want to go into research line or learn the more skills, postdoc you should consider. Another aspect you all need to think about is a lot of postdocs come from foreign nationals. That stream still continues. So as long as there's money from the government to do research, which they will continue, okay, postdocs will continue for those who want to get into academics for prestige, and which is common. If you want to go to a good school or academic teaching, you have to do a couple of years postdoc and publish papers anyway. And some people here, but also a lot of international students who, one of the entry point for them is either, even if they do PhD here, they have to find somebody to sponsor them for a visa, which postdocs become attractive for them.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Bhaskar. That was actually something I was wanting to bring up to the whole group is the hiring demand help affecting immigration? Are people more willing to hire people that need sponsorships? And go the extra mile to get a good candidate, even if they don't have their immigration status all wrapped up and tidy.
Yeah,
So-
I can, Bhaskar, sorry. I can say that the comment that Dennis just made, in the last 3 or 4 events that I've worked for ACS National as a career consultant, every international student, that was the first question that I got when they opened it up. They're like, what about getting sponsored for visa status? That was absolutely the first question that I got asked. So yes, people that are out there looking, they are definitely going to keep that in mind no matter what. Sorry, Bhaskar, go ahead.
No, just, I think you said what I wanted to say, Jimmy, that they ask the question and they don't have a lot of options. For example, GSK won't hire a student for a foreign student with a F visa, okay? Large companies don't, smaller companies still do. So that's what we educate people. On the other hand, I'm sure Dennis knows this, large companies like GSK are doing a trick, okay? They hire what's called industrial postdocs. Basically, they get people for half the salary doing the same thing. And in RTP, Dennis, GSK had the common practice of hiring 3-year industrial postdocs, okay? So they pay some more salary than the academic professors. And if they're a good student, they absorb them. If not, they go somewhere else. So that's another thing also you have to realize it's in the realm of postdocs is, in addition to academic professors, even industries also, large companies like GSK and smaller companies also hire what's called industrial postdocs. Again, they can be students trained More all the students are trained here, but they can be international students or US students.
Oh, very true. Very true. Thanks, Bhaskar. So another question that's popped up is, does the high opportunity for new hires mean that an old timer might have less of a chance to get hired as a consultant? So with this overabundance of opportunities, would somebody that has experience now have a harder time getting picked up as a consultant than they would have in the past?
So Jim, in my time as a career consulting, I come across so many different people. I'm sure you all do. Some people are very good and sometimes they amaze me. Okay, I'll give one example to you. And I come across occasionally people like people who work in a company where they're 45 years old, they work for 20 years in a company, very successful, but suddenly either they're laid off or they don't get promoted, they're getting frustrated. They don't know what to do. They don't have any clue how to write the resume also. Okay. So what we tell people like that is first you have to focus what you want to do. Keep updating your resume occasionally, right? Okay. Now I say the same thing to the people of middle age. Okay. Looking for consulting, that a question asked by who? By Peter, I believe, right? So
No, Douglas.
opportunities are always there. Okay. For scientists, for chemists like us, opportunities are always there. Particularly, I will tell you, I work in a field called CRO, CDMO space. What that is, we are a contract research organization. We do drug discovery research for companies like GSK. We also do manufacturing of intermediates and APIs. There are so many opportunities in that space as a consultant. Consultant can be regulatory consultant. They call CMC consultant is a hard thing today. But I don't know how many of you know what's called CMC consulting is. Are you in this group? I want somebody to comment whether they heard this term called CMC consulting. In the pharmaceutical manufacturing, that's a big thing. Basically, what that means is a chemist need to understand the FDA guidelines of manufacturing. Today, they are so successful, amazingly successful, because there are so many biotech companies, small pharma companies, they don't want to have a expert in-house, so they go and hire consultant. So a company has 4 or 5 consultants for it. Sorry, typically they hire 4 or 5 companies, hire one consultant, okay? And they are paid well. I'll give you this example. I used to have a guy here who used to work in the Burroughs Wellcome locally, a successful organic chemist. He was a group leader. They laid him up. Then he was not sure what, he was almost lost. Then I suggested to him, guys, why don't try the consulting job? And I said, oh, it's not for me. I'm always interested in work. So he took a job in a company called Magellan, which doesn't exist anymore, as a process director. After 2 years, Magellan also closed. Then he became consultant. Today, he still lives in this town. He is so busy, he's making 5 times more salary than what he was making in Burroughs Wellcome or Magellan. And he turns down opportunities left and right because he can only handle 4 or 5 chemists. So my answer to Peter and other people in this group is, don't worry. Opportunities are all there if you're interested in consulting. Rack up your skill set, increase your skill set, increase your network. Know what you're good in, you're experts. And then enhance the network and then look for opportunities. So consulting opportunities are always there. But it depends upon you as a person, and how you can sell yourself, how you can position yourself, how can you present yourself. Let me stop there.
I guess I could echo some of that. I would not think that, but to get back to Jim's original point and question, I would not think that new hires are going to affect the ability of mid or senior career consultants to get work. Unless you are hiring a student out of a lab that's doing a specific technology that you want to develop at your company, say some fancy NMR technique or mass spec technique, or someone coming out of a CRISPR lab. You're hiring young students for potential, for smarts, not so much for a specific skill set. Whereas with a consultant, you're looking for that specific skill set. You really need expertise in that particular area. Kind of what getting at what Bhaskar said with regulatory level consulting. If you don't have that skill set, you're not any use to them. So they really are going after someone who has high level expertise in what they need, and also. He mentioned, it's the smaller companies that need this kind of expertise. If you want to do chemical manufacturing and control at GSK, they have their own people. It's a big company. They got most of what they need. It's the small companies that don't have this expertise that are really in need of consultants, and also, as he said, they just don't have the resources to go out and hire people with that sophisticated level of experience. So I don't think you really are competing with this wave of new folks that are coming along, unless they just happen to be coming out of a lab that is doing exactly what the technology is that a company wants. In which case, that's not something you can compete with if you come out of a postdoc lab doing this one lab in the country kind of technology. More questions from the chat, Jim?
Yes, I actually had one along the way that fits with the last comment that we just had, and something, Dennis, that you had mentioned a little bit earlier. And that is, if we take a look at what Bhaskar had said about there's always opportunities, and to know your skill set and to update that resume and really think about what it is that you've done during a time if you decide to change, and let's just say with Bhaskar's reply to being a consultant. And then to Dennis, a point that you had made earlier, when somebody wants to say, look for a postdoc, and you use the phrase, try something a little bit different. If you go through and take a look, and I can even say, teaching an undergraduate institution, how do you get that point across to somebody who's early in their career? Oh, yes, I want to go, and there's many of us on the call, so I think it's okay. Oh, I want to get a PhD in organic chemistry, and I'm going to postdoc, and I'm going to work on that total synthesis. And, you have a one-track, one-focused mind for what it is that you want to do. You might be very, very good at that particular topic, but how do you turn around and say, wait a minute, hold it, put the brakes on a little bit, and let's think about something here, and say, is there anything else in the world that might have sparked your interest? And maybe you should, and I'm not just gearing this towards somebody looking for a postdoc. I'm going to go to Bhaskar's point, somebody who might be already had 15, 20 years in a career, and turn around and say, was there ever something that you looked at that crossed your mind that say, hey, I can go back and look at something else to build a skill set? And I can use myself as an example. I've been an organic professor for 20 years. I'm on sabbatical this semester, and I'm learning how to do protein crystallography, something I had never done and never had the wildest dream of ever doing. It crossed my mind that I liked it, and I went and pursued it. So how do we not make that initial, what I could see a barrier, a high activation energy peak to get over, in saying it's okay to look at other things, to take the work that you've done, the good solid work that you've done, and repurpose into something else to look for other opportunities that you might never have put one and one together and gotten two out of it?
So Jim, it depends on the personal choice and personal interest and personal goal. As you rightly said, we as human beings are very creative, and we like to take up challenges. Ultimately, it depends on what one wants to do with their expertise and also their vision, their goal, right? I know somebody retired. I know Ray Dagger, one of the consultants, retired. He does good work today. Okay, that's what he enjoys doing. And is that challenging? He tells me it's very challenging. I cannot do anything he does. But I agree with you completely. What you said is, it ultimately depends to the personal choice. Yes, somebody can jump in after 15 years, say, I want to change, complete their career, and you go and learn CRISPR technology, and you come across people like that. There aren't many, but there are some, and they become very creative and successful in what they do. because of their focus. They're focused so much in what they want to do.
So go ahead, Dennis.
I saw the question flash up about what skill
Skill
sets are
sets.
particularly in demand. Definitely a hard one to answer. From what I see, a lot of it is the cutting edge technologies, either that or a deep and thorough knowledge of target biology. Do you know something about a particular kinase that's involved in Alzheimer's? And that tends to be very specialized academic research. That's probably not all that much utility for the folks on the call. So a specialized technology, if you're looking for pharma discovery, but going back to what Bhaskar said, is anything to do with the regulatory environment. People just don't know how to handle that. It's something that you learn by doing. It's complicated. There's a lot of mistakes you can make that can be costly, and that's where people really need the expertise. Making your way through the regulatory environment, especially in pharma, the studies you have to do, the documentation you need to produce, the rule following and bulletproof experiments that you have to do to get a compound into people, meaning clinical trial, is quite a lot, quite sophisticated, and quite detailed. And if you know that stuff, there's always a place for you. Discovery in the pharma industry, the routine stuff, probably not as much. There's so many online tools available that for sleuthing reactions, for sleuthing reaction conditions. What ligand do I use for this cross-coupling reaction? So there's lots of databases for our folks to go to where they can find the top half dozen, and then the next half dozen ligands to throw at a palladium catalyzed reaction. That's not all that much help. It's really when you're getting into a new technology, essentially what I would call platform technologies, that are really going to open the door in discovery. The fundamental, chemistry, biochemistry, that stuff's pretty well covered, at least in big pharma, by in-house folks. At a smaller company, if they have a time-dependent inhibitor and they don't know what they're doing biochemically with that, then yeah, they might need your expertise. But the big companies have a lot of that stuff covered.
If I could jump in there, I'm sorry, Bhaskar, if I could jump in there to answer that question about skill sets. One of the questions that I constantly get asked in my role as a career consultant, and I've seen this more and more, not just from graduate students, but particularly now a lot from undergraduates, and a couple of other career events that I've worked where I've worked highly with undergraduates, is they come around talking about coding, information technology, information security, AI, machine learning. All of those things have all started to pop up at the very high end when I do resume reviews and things of that nature. Those are all things that I see listed in the skills sections on resumes now that seem to be overwhelmingly popping up with people wanting to get into that. And I don't think any of us have to look very far. I mean, you go online, you watch a YouTube video, there's going to be an ad that has some kind of coding boot camp, or you turn around and see a university or a computer science department that's offering a coding boot camp that's out there. It's becoming a lot more mainstream than probably many of us ever thought it would be. But from my own experience, people looking for jobs in chemistry, that's been a very, very high skill set that I've seen. Whether it's in demand right now or not, that could be another debate. But I can definitely see a lot more students taking courses, computer science, cybersecurity, information security, all of that across the way as another important skill set that they believe, from whatever sources they have, to pile up on that resume to go through.
Yeah, I agree that we have a big artificial intelligence, machine learning group, and if you can do that, there's going to be plenty of demand.
So
Again, that kind of falls in the in a platform technology idea where they're really interested in expertise in a technology that they can apply across the discovery and development organization. So AI ML is definitely something that fits that bill.
So Jim and Dennis, I just wanted a couple of comments. Okay, what skill sets are in demand, and how the whole thing is changing? And you rightly said a couple of things. Traditionally, pharma industry was the largest employer for organic chemist trained or chemist trained in America, traditionally. That changed 10, 15 years ago. What happened was a lot of pharma companies started outsourcing research and development. They basically shut down the R&D centers. By default, they are asking their chemists to become what's called a project managers. I don't know how many of you know what a project management is, but that's another thing that's out there today, a non-traditional career, okay, within the companies. So for example, GSK hires 200 chemists in Wuxi in China. Somebody need to oversee them, what they are doing, what progress they are making. So they assign that to 3-4 of their group leaders. They call them project managers. So there's another thing I wanted to bring it up as a consulting position is these are the new opportunities, what I call non-traditional opportunity opening up for those who are interested is what is called project management. That can be in the space of drug discovery, development, or in a manufacturing sector, work with suppliers and customers directly. So that has become very common nowadays. But nobody trains you in a grad school to become a project manager. So this is an acquired skill, like what we talked earlier called CMC skill. That's an acquired skill. There are no schools you can go today learn a project management or CMC. Okay, so those are some opportunities popping up there for those of us who want to work outside our traditional background. In my experience with during career consulting, I come across a lot of new opportunity coming in the material sciences field. Okay, as nanotechnology is becoming more and more mature, now the RNA technology with the CRISPR becoming very popular. 10 years down the road, basically most of the drugs get discovered using mRNA technology. And so I see a lot of interest in this area, opportunities in this area, material sciences, and also RNA related sciences. And one more thing I see happening a lot of that is, in fact, forget all the science. Many people, when they do PhD, they are becoming entrepreneurs, starting their own companies with the research work they have done with their professor. I know at least 4 or 5 examples from Duke, where the grad student, when he finishes PhD, his thesis subject become a company they start together with his professor. So there's another thing that's happening quite a bit actually in this area.
So Bhaskar, you actually sort of anticipated what the next thing I was going to say is, or next question I was going to pose is, what about opportunities that come along where fresh graduate students, fresh postdocs decide to go into the consulting business right away? They don't want to do a second postdoc, or they don't want to take a big industry job, but they want to start their own consulting arm. What kind of things have you gentlemen seen with regard to that with respect to the modern times?
So Jim, my experience is most of the times a postdoc or a PhD can become a consultant based on their individual capacity and skill set. But one thing I noticed is they become, when I say entrepreneurs, they start their own companies, the technology they develop at their school. Okay. Now, some people become consultants because they see opportunities, they see like they can make more money and they can fill a void that exists. Okay. But based on what I know, I don't see that many young people become consultant, Jim. I want to hear Dennis and other people's thoughts on this. But I'll give an example. 2 people I met recently, they become grant writers. Okay. You know what a grant writer is? See, a lot of people don't spend time writing grants, but they understand some people develop as a skill and they provide that as a consulting service. So I know at least 3-4 people who have become very successful in writing grant proposals. So you have an idea, but these guys know how to put it together nicely, and they get a cut in the grant. Okay, so that has become very common thing for not many people, but some people. And there's a company here started by one guy, started himself, slowly grew, called Grant Engine. Now he hires 26 chemists. Some of them come directly from grad school. Some of them come from places he worked. So what I'm saying is, all these things are driven by opportunities, how well you are connected, what is your strength, what can you offer out there that meets a requirement that people are willing to spend some money and pay for it.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a question up on patents. I don't see them becoming less important at all. A big pharma company like GSK that I'm at has a fully staffed set of patent attorneys, and it's not going away. I can't see that. I can't see that at all.
And I can say from my graduate school days, now this is going back a little bit, but when I had to teach advanced organic lab, almost every semester that I had to teach that, I had 1 or 2 students that were in there that were practicing attorneys, that their firms sent them back and said, would you like to sit there and consider sitting for the patent bar exam? And they needed to go back and finish a requisite number of chemistry classes to get ready to sit for that. And I had a very large number that went that route. And every semester I had to teach somebody in advanced organic lab how to do a vacuum distillation. And they're like, what is this going to do for me for taking the patent bar? I was like, look, you just got to get through my class right now. I'll worry about the rest of that later. But I agree with Dennis. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to go away very readily. I think that's going to end up becoming just as important in the future as it is today. And I think it will only gain more prominence as we go ahead.
Yeah, and it's been happening. It's been happening for probably a generation now. But I think, from what I know, the climate in Boston is this great ecosystem where you have academic labs that are producing scientists and ideas, companies that want to take those ideas and build a business off of it. But then you need you have the whole patent attorney and patent law firm that basically handles the agreements, handles the patents. So every research university, if they're worth their salt, has a technology transfer office with good patent attorneys, because the universities see a potential lottery ticket with any of the professors' ideas that come through. So I don't know how mature it is. That's a question I don't have experience in standing on. But as I said, I do not see it becoming any less important than it is now.
Completely agree, Dennis. In fact, it is becoming more and more important to universities, because they see that as a great way to make money, which goes into their coffers. Like, Georgia, what happened, Dennis discovering these hepatitis C drugs. That's the largest beneficiary of that whole patent that they have done. They've got close to billions of dollars. Same thing with Northwestern. And a lot of universities are doing that as a way. In fact, they're beefing up their patent department and using chemists to patent all the ideas. Like, I was a postdoc at Rockford University several years ago. I don't know whether you heard, there's a protein chemist called Bruce Merrifield, who won Nobel Prize in 1984. Bruce Merrifield is the one who invented solid phase synthesis in 1960s. He discovered how to make peptides on the solid particles, and that he never patented that. Okay, today that industry itself is close to billions of dollars. But after 1990s, almost all the professors patent what they do at the universities. So universities have strong tech transfer department, like Dennis said, have many patent attorneys and patenting every idea they can, because they see a gold mine there. So patent attorneys have become very important in not only universities, but also in companies all across.
Well, I thank you very much. The problem that I'm always running across is that at universities, their budgets, the CTO budgets are very, very tight. And, I don't know what to do about that because, I mean, whatever law firm I was working for, they always had UPenn and Penn State as their client because, the CTOs are spreading the word, the work around so many different law firms because they want to, and the law firms take it as a hit because they do want to encourage the future students or the students who are going to be scientists at some companies to hire that law firm. But I just every time that they tell me, hey, you have a budget of $4,000 to write a patent application, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm going to give you something very thin. You guys have to give me something to work with if you want to have a valuable patent. And I'm really struggling with CTOs.
So Peter, where are you? Are you by yourself or you work with at a firm or at
Well, I'm by myself. I used to be a patent. I used to be a partner at an MLaw 200 law firm, but now I'm on my own. And my clients are medium and small size businesses in the chemical sector. And yeah, I mean, I try to help the universities, but it just doesn't. It's like uphill battle with the funding.
It's
Really?
a loss. It's a lost leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I got family to feed. My kids are going to college, and so yeah, everything is expensive for me. So
Wow, that's different than what I hear. But of course, maybe I know big schools. But Jim, where you are, do you have patent attorneys or ideas, things like that? Or not?
No, we're way too small for that.
Okay. But that's the problem, Peter. I think, Peter. So if you go to places like UPenn and all, they should have they should not have that problem, right? Or they have the same problem also.
no, I'm talking about them. It's
Really?
CTOs. Well, most CTOs have this problem. Yeah, it's like they. But the good news is that what I've seen nowadays is that they have more officers on the staff, and so you don't have an electrical engineer trying to do biochemistry. You do have 5 or 6 scientists or engineers who specialize in that, and they understand the technology much better than they used to in the past. Where you have to try to convince a mechanical engineer that this technology makes sense, and it's but it's always the question is not necessarily patent. It's always the business end. How do you go about transferring it to outside? And that's usually the hardest problem for the CTOs to handle.
I think you're already what you said before. I think is the answer is the small and medium companies.
Yeah.
Because the bigger the big pharma has their own staff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Small companies are the one go to, but obviously, I mean, mostly non-service companies, innovator companies, what you will be a good fit for you. Hopefully, you'll find some couple of those people, Peter. So that way, at least you can get it going. Yeah.
Roman, I'll get to you in 1 second. I got one other question in the chat. Are there any specific chemistry sectors such as pharma or biotech or petrochemical or commodity chemicals, et cetera, that are showing higher levels of hiring? So do we see anything across the board in any specific areas? Now, I can say from my experience as a career consultant, most of the people that I've dealt with have usually wanted to go into pharma. And that's where it is that I see the most discussion with regard to opportunities, increased hiring all of a sudden, more options, as Dennis said, the working remotely, things of that nature. So that's been my experience. So Bhaskar, Dennis, anything across the board with regard to those given sectors?
So there were tremendous opportunities in the oil petrochemical industry during the shale days, Jim. There's quite cool down, at least last 2 years, maybe it might get heated up again. A lot of jobs, chemical engineers, mostly petrochemical chemists, operators, equipment manufacturers, like hotcake, highly paid jobs. I'm sure you all know that. I mean, when that was going on gung-ho a few years ago. Today, I see, like in last year in Chicago, last ACS meeting, people are looking for a lot of chemical engineers because they want to start the plants again because of the government encouragement. A lot of chemical engineers they were looking for. Of course, organic chemists for pharma industry is always in high demand. Okay, but definitely the trend is pharma space, biological space, but also chemical engineers in the manufacturing sector is I see a big driver.
Yeah, this is probably a little bit sacrilege, but the advice that I've been giving, especially to newly minted students, is that traditional small molecule pharmaceutical discovery is pretty well standardized. And it's not as big a growth field as the larger molecules, the biologics. Antibody conjugates. You look at the messenger RNA technology. Things like that are growing and have a lot of fascinating and career building problems to be solved. Whereas, making another statin or making another kinase inhibitors, if you're an organic chemist, yeah, you can go after that, but you really might be much better off thinking about the macromolecule chemistry that you can that you could do. Also, whole cell wide technologies. How do you deal and understand with compounds that affect multiple parts of a pathway? Do genome wide and proteome wide experiments? Do you know what a Manhattan plot is? Why is it important? Those are the kinds of things that if you're newly starting out as a chemist, think beyond just the small molecules. Yeah, that's going to be around for a while yet, but the big challenges are in the macromolecules and the genome-wide areas. Probably not all that helpful information for the folks on this call, but that's a little bit of my sacrilege about small molecule discovery, which is what I'm doing now.
Well, Dennis, I totally get what you're saying with regards to pharma, with regards to human health, but Bhaskar opened up this discussion with the statement that it was so difficult to get so many starting materials, for example, which are really the basis for the entire chemical enterprise beyond just pharma.
Yeah.
And you kind of wonder about this concept where all of our sourcing for the small molecule starting materials is from offshore. In some cases, it's through countries and governments that are not always friendly to ours or to EU. Is that when we talk more about manufacturing more in the US, is that just something that the US just will never get into because of waste or regulatory issues? Or is there something, there as an opportunity for the chemical enterprise to supply at least some of these starting materials, that are the basis for the entire chemical industry?
Keith,
Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that, Keith. What it is that I've heard in my consulting gigs with being a career consultant and what I've read in our trade journal is I think eventually the pendulum is going to have to swing back to that. So one thing that I know our trade journal has published a lot lately has been on lithium ion batteries and all the things around that. And now I was an article in there recently about switching to sodium ion batteries and to building the technologies for these. And if you take a look now, what is it in Egypt? They've got, what is it, COP27 going on and things like that. So I think a lot of the materials, raw materials, to use that term broadly, and basic technologies to support that, I think are going to eventually have to come back. And I can just say one thing that's spurred me to think about this was a not so nice story that came out of New York City over the weekend. If you saw, there was a fire in the 20th floor of a 35-story building, and the fire marshals determined that the fire was caused by a lithium-ion battery in a scooter that somebody had stored in a 20th floor apartment. I think when you see things like this and you look at, for instance, the number of fires that have been built up around lithium-ion battery storage and alternatives to try to come up with a safer entity. I don't think anybody's going to want to get away from those. I think the basic commodity chemical building market is going to have to swing back and start building again. If you're going to take a look at climate change and all the things that are going to be needed to address the issues that I said COP27 is discussing right now in Egypt, I think a basic level of reverberation in that area is going to have to come through, or otherwise we're going to be playing catch up all the way down the road. You're going to have one technology that comes out, everybody's going to jump on it, and they're going to say, well, it's going to take you 3 years to get the manufacturing worked out for this. And people are going to say, well, what good is that? They said that we signed an agreement by the end of this decade.
It is a challenge, actually, Keith, what you said. And there are two things need to happen. One is there got to be enough mindset among the companies and governments to push that openly. And government is doing their best, current government for sure, and previous government. But some skill is already gone. They have to rebuild that skill, Keith. When I say skill, means like measuring the basic things, okay? You know how chemical industry was, and I'm sure you all know this. We all used to make in Carolinas dyes in 1930s, 40s. These are all textile dyes. So that industry slowly moved out. Then came pharmaceutical manufacturing. So high value things are all here, low value things are all moved out for a variety of reasons. So I'm not here to debate those. Now with that went the basic chemical manufacturing expertise, similarly to other manufacturing too. Now I'm sure it can come back. The other thing that could happen is technology advances so rapidly, we don't need any traditional manufacturing anymore. We start making things, in a creative way. Then that starts all over again. So that could be a good beginning too. And I want to leave one thought, since you mentioned, Keith, is with evolving battery technology. Today, all the fuel for automobiles come from petrochemical industry. We are chemical industry, the beneficiary of petrochemical industry.
Right.
We get solvents from reagents, building blocks from petrochemical industry. Now think that there is no petrochemical industry 50 years down the road. Just think. There's no need for petrol, diesel anymore. Who is going to supply the raw materials for chemicals? Who is going to supply the solvents for chemicals we are doing? So one new paradigm that's happening up, and many academicians are thinking now, is how can they come with a research without involving any organic chemicals? Okay, it's almost like what we were 150 years ago when we started this whole industry. Yeah. So that is happening too. I wouldn't be around to see a benefit of all that, but that paradigm also being thought through by experts. Amazing.
And it's an interesting thing. Everybody thinks about ExxonMobil as this big fuel company. They make a tremendous amount of their money on basic chemicals.
Yes, of course.
Huge. They're a huge chemical company.
Right. But they're not, if there is no need for their fuel, they're not going to make basic chemicals anymore, right? Fuel is driving them to make basic chemicals come to the fuel. Fuel is the first driver for them, okay, right? Anyway, that's a different thing altogether, but there's a new forward-looking thinking that's going on in the industry. Experts are thinking, some of those thinking like, okay, how can people come up with a chemistry avoiding as few, or doing with as few reagents as possible, as few traditional organic solvents as possible, that type of thing.
Yeah, principles of green chemistry.
Roman, I didn't want to ignore you. I know you had your hand up and we got disrupted a little bit. So Roman, the floor is yours.
Okay. You all say that it's great to be a chemist today, or to become a chemist today. And I agree, of course. However, let me tell you something. I'm very much interested in open innovation. Recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, I read a challenge by Bristol Myers Squibb. They look for innovative introductions to the treatment of heart disease and the detection of heart disease. And they offer tremendous amount of money. That's what they say. And there will be 5 winners. And these 5 winners will be invited to Nevada to discuss things. Unfortunately, we cannot pay for the cost of traveling to Nevada. What do you say about this? You're saying these companies are really serious? We are talking about real research. If they cannot afford, I don't know, few thousand bucks for travel of 5 winners of this great challenge to Nevada. I know it doesn't represent the industry, but it's annoying, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And they're not that small company. You may have heard about them. Mr. Myers-Skip.
It is peanuts for them, but unfortunately, I guess, yeah, they don't want to. They want ideas, but not people to pay for them to pay themselves to come.
Right.
Yeah.
That tells you what is the attitude towards research, toward really are they interested in helping these people with heart condition and so on.
Right.
Yeah,
I find it very disheartening.
Yeah, the more naive you are, the more you would go for that. But a little bit of cynicism in this case goes a long way to realize that they just want to take advantage of you.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't agree.
Let me add one more thing. Keith used recently, we didn't say this word for a long time, green chemistry. Is green chemistry going to become important for the chemical industry? You know, we say a lot of words, but in practice, 10 years from now, how big part of chemical industry will be green chemical industry?
No, look, when I brought it up, Roman, I definitely didn't think it was going to become gigantic. I guess what I was bringing up was the thought, could we bring the manufacture of some of the chemical building blocks back to the States? I had made no allusions as to how big green chemistry is going to be. Although I go to green chemistries conferences every year, the effort, especially in pharma, has been enormous to reduce solvent use, to increase atom efficiency, blah, blah, blah. But this larger question, economic question that Bhaskar kind of brought up is I kind of wonder about it. If we could handle the environmental impact, you kind of wonder, I mean, and start like in Dennis's case with high value pharmaceuticals. My God, I mean, we're being held hostage by some of these other companies for some of even generic pharmaceuticals that the US needs.
Yep.
At some point that has to end, right? We have to not be in such a position of dependency that COVID supply chain
Demonstrated.
problems revealed over the last 3-4 years, right?
So
What do
true.
you think about that?
So true. Yeah.
Roman, to address your question with the green chemistry, I can say from an academic point of view, and every month I read the Journal of Chemical Education, more and more experiments that are listed in the Journal of Chemical Education now go under the heading of a green chemistry experiment. And I can see the whole pendulum shifting, because when I started my academic career, organic chemistry lab went to the micro scale, and you had all these specialized kits that came out, and you did things in little 3 milliliter conical vials and all of this, so that you could cut down on the amount of raw materials that you were using in solvents. And then people said, oh boy, I want my 1420 round bottoms back. And then the micro scale went away. And now you're turning around and you're seeing everything green. And now you start to see laboratories that have the students want to come in and say, what are the 12 principles of green chemistry? And can you identify 5 or 6 of them that you've read in this laboratory that you're going to be performing here? So I think the push is going to be in that direction. How well it's going to to take hold, how well it's going to be accepted. And I can see one thing, I think every one of us has seen the waste pipe coming out of an LC into a 4-liter jug on the floor of solvent, of acetonitrile water over there when you're running an LC. I don't see that going away exceedingly fast. I think newer technologies that will try to more directly address the green chemistry will start coming into play. How fast it will be accepted, I think, is going to be another thing. And there's a point to something Keith had raised. Chemical and Engineering News 2-3 issues ago, they had a whole big spread story in there on, is organic chemistry going to finally be over when you don't have petroleum-based products giving you starting materials and solvents and things like that? How is organic chemistry going to survive if you can't go to petrochemical industry to get all your starting materials anymore? So I think the discussion has been out there. I mean, one of the other ones that you've seen a lot of lately, and I know a lot of research has come out with regard to this, how do you make concrete, Gesundheit, how do you make concrete carbon friendly going forward? And I know an awful lot of research efforts have gone to try to look at modifications for concrete manufacturing to make it more carbon friendly.
I think that a lot of the green chemistry is, from what I've seen from my clients, is pushed by the customers. They want to, just like you want to have ethical issues and have equity and so for a lot of environmental issues, people want to see the people who are the eventual customers, who are the users of the product. They want to feel good about themselves, not necessarily because of what the chemicals can do for you, but also because of they are sourced well. It's like, well, I can go ahead and use this chemical because it is green chemical. And so it's like you're really not wasting anything. You just feel good.
I have to sign off, folks. Thanks for listening.
Oh, thanks, Dennis. I appreciate it.
See you around
Thanks,
the.
So
Cheers.
Dennis, thank you. Good talk, catching up again. I'm sure we'll see you soon. Good luck with all the research you guys are doing in GSK, okay?
Thank you. Good night, folks.
Take care, Dennis.
Can I say something about green chemistry, please?
Go ahead, Roman.
Roman, go ahead.
Well, all you said is correct, and I agree. And it's important to decrease the amount of solvent we are using. But there's a potential, and I'm not, here is my question really, for the major revolution to get rid of the petroleum-based starting materials and move to waste or cellulose and hemicellulose and so on starting materials. And there are papers suggesting it's possible. And the cost is going down rapidly. Are we there yet? I don't think so. But my question is that going to happen ever? Perhaps, never?
I work in that field, Roman, and I think never.
Okay.
The green sources of biomass to chemicals will increase with time, but it will never displace subterranean carbon completely, that I think. Never.
I hope you're wrong, but I'm afraid you're right.
And who knows, evolution, new technologies, new ideas come, but I agree with Keith. Traditionally, there's so much goes around what we do today. Change will be very, very slow. A key driver is if all the petrochemical industry goes away, then hopefully by then, we all need to reinvent how to do science. Who knows, by then small molecules might go away. We may be talking only all the biologicals made from fermentation and water, Who knows how things evolve, right? But definitely that thought has become very serious among the industry experts, okay? Because as we push more for battery technology, and also solar energy, that type of thing. So the chemical, petrochemicals go away. Oh, that's the idea. The automobile industry goes away, that type of thing. So we'll see how it evolves. But going back to this, Jim told me, this group, consulting group, I have a couple of comments I want to say before I close. There are a lot of opportunities for consultants. I work with a lot of people in the ACS. Once I'm sure you all experts, it looks like in this area, but opportunities are always there. It depends upon who you know. That's how consultants work, as you know. So I'm sure you know that. So make sure you develop more contacts, enhance your network, help others, then they remember and they help you. That's why I would like to summarize this, Jim. How to
Thank you, Bhaskar.
Yeah.
And I think both Dennis and Bhaskar had raised a lot of very common points, and points that I think are also very relevant is that we got into a particular field because somebody had recognized that we were good at it. We ended up finding and saying, yes, I am, and build up an expertise in that area. But I think the other message is, don't ever turn a blind eye. I mean, we're all scientists. We're all supposed to be trained observers. Don't turn a blind eye to what's going on around you and just throw up false walls that turn around and say, well, that's not my area of expertise. Okay, I can agree with you if I turn around and say, yes, as of this time on this date, this might not be your area of expertise. Let's have a cup of coffee and discuss this. Let's look for opportunities that are out there. And maybe 2 months from now, when I come back, you're a lot more of an expert in this area than I am. And there's always the possibility that something that you overlooked, that you gave I like to use the kid eating broccoli example and then you said, gee whiz, I could have been enjoying broccoli for all those years, but I put up a wall and said, no, I'm not going to eat that. That you can find the opportunities that will lead to possibilities that 2 weeks ago, 2 minutes ago, you might never have had allowed to cross your mind to say, oh yes, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to get involved in this. So the opportunities to go out there and take a consulting opportunity, getting into that field, as Bhaskar had said, you have to be open to looking around and looking to do something else. Yes, and Dennis had mentioned this before, companies are going to look for a given skill set, a given expertise area. Yes, you might not be there now, but give it a little bit of time. If it's something that interests you, that you find a passion for in yourself, go out and pursue those. Don't be afraid to try things that your advisor told you don't do. I always like to use the Victor Grignard. I mean, what did he do? His advisor told him that would never work and he won a Nobel Prize. All right, send him to Stockholm. But always be on the lookout for what opportunities might be there for yourself, because a passing casual conversation, you don't know what that might be. Right. Yes, you might go into a situation where I'm not the expert and you're talking to other people who have a lot more experience that you might say and expertise than you do, but something you have done in your past might actually be the thing that opens a whole other door that both sides might never have seen as an opportunity. And when that happens, sky's the limit for what it is we could do as scientists. So I think one of the key things is that now that the unemployment level is looking to improve in these areas, I think from my experience and what it is that I've told people is look at all options of it. And one of the issues to get across to people is, yes, chemistry is an exceedingly broad field. And yes, as undergraduates, you're all set up to the 6 different subdisciplines that are in chemistry. But once you get out in the field, you got to realize that everybody works together. Everybody works together to achieve a mission success, to get a project completed, to get a product on the market, or as Dennis said, to get a compound in a clinic. So always look for the opportunities that are there, because your expertise, your experience, what it is that you've gone through in life is something very unique that you can bring to the table. And when people with unique backgrounds come to the table, if we're all scientists and put that in the front, like I said, sky's the limit for what it is that we can do in the process.
So true. So true. Okay.
Agreed, Jim.
Yep. So on that note, probably we should close the session.